what's up?
On August 14th, 2016, Colin Kaepernick was captured sitting down during the national anthem. It wasn't the first time he did this, but it was the first time that it started to generate attention. And then, he sat again. So it became a thing where each game, the media is scoping out what Colin is gonna do. That's when people started to become outraged, completely warping Colin's original messaging. In Colin's words, he sat during the pledge because he's not going to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. But the way the media pushed this protest, they viewed it as he's not standing up to honor the veterans serving the country. As you can guess, veterans started speaking out, specifically Nate Boyer, who was very vocal about his distaste for Colin's stance.
What was your initial response when you saw that Colin Kaepernick sat for the national anthem?
I'll be completely honest, my initial response was anger, I was angry and disappointed because I grew up a Niner fan and I was pulling for this guy. Now he just pissed on my flag.
Luckily, Nate was open-minded enough to have a conversation with Colin about his protest. So during the preseason game against the Green Bay Packers, he made a deliberate shift. Nate told Colin that kneeling, like a soldier's grave, was more respectful than sitting. Colin understood where Nate was coming from and simply agreed. He said he wanted to make a statement without being disrespectful to the military.
But then I just stopped making all these judgments and tried to listen to what he's talking about. Specifically, is police brutality. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I want to try to understand where he's coming from, at least somewhat, because I haven't walked around in his shoes, but he hasn't walked around in my boots. You know what I mean? So I just wrote a letter and he got a hold of it.
He contacted you?
Yeah, he contacted me. He said he was inspired by it and he was wanting to sit down with me, just have a discussion. First thing he said when we met was, hey, I just want you to know I appreciate your service more than anything. I expressed to him, maybe there's a different way to demonstrate where you're showing more respect for those that lay down their lives for what that flag and anthem stands for. I suggested, kneeling, because people kneel to pray. We'll kneel in front of a fallen brother's grave, to show respect. He said, I think that would be really powerful.
After this, you'd think the messaging would be clear and everything would blow over. Well, wrong. That was not the case, and Colin's stance turned into a long whirlwind battle in the media. Now, contrary to popular belief, the NFL didn't really have a problem with Colin kneeling or sitting. Colin's coach, Chip Kelly, told reporters that Colin's decision to not stand during the national anthem is his right as a citizen, and said that it's not his right to tell him not to do something. The NFL released a statement stating, players are encouraged, but not required to stand during the playing of the national anthem. So the coaches and the CEOs didn't really care. Colin took the veterans' advice and decided to kneel out of respect instead of sitting. So what's the problem? After the 49ers preseason finale against the Chargers, Colin announced that he plans to donate his first $1 million to underrepresented charities in need. He had immense support from everybody in the industry. Tons of celebrities donated thousands of dollars. Jhené Aiko, Usher, and Chris Brown to name a few, and Colin reached his $1 million goal to donate this money to underprivileged youth. Colin's stance solely shined a light on systemic racism. The San Francisco Police Officers Association issued a public letter condemning his decision to kneel, and especially took issue with his criticism of law enforcement, including his comments that police were getting paid leave while people of color were being murdered.
Are you going to be a person that actually goes out and does something about it, or are you going to be the proverbial Monday morning quarterback and criticize and do nothing about it?
The union also warned the 49ers that its officers may refuse to work stadium security for home games unless the team disciplined Colin. The national attention from Colin's actions rallied support from all over the globe. Athletes began showing support for Colin's actions. His jerseys were selling out and he became a hashtag on social media. But the other side of the fence were people who saw Colin's actions as unpatriotic and began burning his jerseys. Which is kind of funny to me because it's like you bought it to burn it, but you're still contributing to sales. Either way, that was burning them jerseys up, and Colin taking a stance became a nationwide topic on every news panel, ESPN debate, online discourse. He became the #1 topic. Former President Barack Obama was asked about Colin's actions.
Trying to remind folks that part of what makes this country special is that we respect people's rights to have a different opinion. and to make different decisions about how they want to express their concerns. And the test of our fidelity to our Constitution, to freedom of speech, to our Bill of Rights, is not when it's easy, but when it's hard. We fight sometimes so that people can do things that we disagree with.
A sophisticated answer that touched on both sides while respecting different point of views, while Donald Trump gave his opinion that fed into the media outrage.
Luther and I, and everyone in this arena tonight, are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
When Donald Trump was elected, social media was flooded with white nationalism, while at the same time shined a light on how deep systemic racism and the mistreatment of African Americans was. The murder of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, where both shootings were caught on video and widely circulated online, sparking national outrage. Massive protests erupted across the US demanding police accountability. With the release of the Netflix documentary 13, further putting it into perspective, America's history with black men being disproportionately targeted by the justice system. While you had people supporting Colin and his cause, there was a clear division with people who saw him as the unpatriotic football player. A lot of people believe that Colin was blackballed from the NFL, but that may not have been entirely the case. In 2012, Colin became the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers and took the team all the way to the Super Bowl that season. People thought he was the future of the league. Unfortunately, that didn't last as long as people expected. In 2015, things started to fall apart for Colin. He was dealing with multiple injuries, his shoulder, thumb, knee issues that affected how he played. His stats dropped and the team wasn't winning, and eventually he got benched in favor of another QB, Blaine Gabbert. Colin wasn't at the top of his game and lost his starting position when everything with the protest started. It doesn't mean he wasn't a good player. He just wasn't as good as he used to be. So after the controversy in the media, Colin became a free agent. But the optics just weren't in his favor. The media attention, the controversy, and the potential backlash that came with signing him just didn't seem worth it to the league. Colin wasn't out of the league just because of his skills. He was out because the drama that came with him was considered more trouble than the value the teams thought he could bring. So was he blackballed? Kind of. Yeah, but did he bring a lot of value before the protest? Not necessarily. So it was a mixture of both. Because he went unsigned, he filed a collusion grievance against the NFL in 2017. A lot of minorities and NFL fans saw Colin going unsigned as an act of racism and alienation. Basically, the NFL is trying to make an example out of Colin, so the NFL faced a ton of backlash for this. Jay-Z made a deal with the NFL first, then spoke to Colin Kaepernick after, and that right there is where the issue starts. Colin had been using non-violent protests to hold the NFL accountable, not just for police brutality, but for the way they silenced him and blackballed him after he spoke out. His stance was rooted in demanding real accountability, not just surface-level PR. But instead of addressing Colin directly or working with him to repair that damage, the NFL skipped over him and went straight to Jay-Z. Why? Because Jay-Z brought influence, entertainment value, and credibility with the black audiences, and he wasn't kneeling. He was willing to make a deal.
Did you kneel or would you stand?
Okay, I think we've passed kneeling. I think it's time to go into actionable items. I think everyone knows what the issue is, and we're done with that. Everyone knows what you know what the issue is? You know why we were kneeling? Okay, do you know the issue? Yeah, do you know the issue? Yes? We all know the issue now. Okay, next. Where are we moving on next? And I'm not, again, so to be clear for the room, I'm not minimizing that part of it because that has to happen. That's a necessary part of the process. But now we all know what's going on. What are we going to do? How are we going to stop? Because the kneeling was not about a job. It was about injustice. Let me bring attention to injustice. Everyone's saying, how are you going forward? And Cap doesn't have a job. This wasn't about him having a job.
So when Jay said, "I think we've moved past kneeling," it felt like the league used him to gloss over the core issue. They still hadn't made things right with the man who took the fall for sparking the conversation in the first place. Plus, the lawsuit that Colin filed against the NFL, he won. He settled for a little under $10 million. So now, 5 years later, Roc Nation has been in the press because they have been accused of doing smear campaigns. Nessa, Colin Kaepernick's wife, openly spoke out about Roc Nation after Nicki Minaj accused Roc Nation and Jay-Z of trying to tarnish her career.
Jay-Z never spoke to Colin before he made that deal with the NFL. He only spoke to Colin after he made that deal and knew exactly what it would do to Colin, and he was okay with it. You know how I know? I was there.
Colin did what he felt was right. He used his platform to speak out against injustice and chose to peacefully protest, even knowing it might come at a cost. And it did. His decision to take a knee during the national anthem sparked a national conversation, but it also effectively ended his NFL career. Years later, the same league that turned its back on him began embracing social justice messaging without ever fully acknowledging the sacrifice he made to push that conversation forward. But oh, have the tables turned. Commissioner Roger Goodell released a video stating that the league admits it was wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier and encourages all to speak out and peacefully protest.
My condolences to the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all the families who have endured police brutality. We, the National Football League, condemn racism and the systematic oppression of Black people. We, the National Football League, admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier and encourage all to speak out and peacefully protest. We, the National Football League, believe Black Lives Matter.
And then the NFL committed $250 million over a 10-year period to combat systemic racism. The tables always turn, guys. And still, they won't sign Colin back into the league, even though he showed interest in coming back. Colin, unfortunately, sacrificed his career for the bigger message that wasn't acknowledged till years later. Despite the silence, his impact couldn't be ignored. Today, Colin is a household name for pioneering the fight for justice within the world of football. Let me know what you guys think down below about Colin Kaepernick and the NFL down below, and make sure you comment, like, and subscribe.